Hello again. This podcast kicks off a mini-series looking at manuscript preparation and submission for publication. First off, you need to pick a target journal. In this podcast, we'll go over some of the factors to consider when selecting a target journal. This list is by no means comprehensive, but it does cover some of the more important points. Publication is a knowledge translation activity, and your work needs to reach the knowledge users. You need to know your audience, and this determination should happen in the planning stages of your project, not when you've already written a manuscript and are trying to decide what to do with it. Almost all research grants will require you to have a knowledge translation plan of some sort, and being able to be specific will strengthen your case. It will also influence how you justify your research rationale and how you write your discussion, so this is an important planning consideration with ramifications beyond your choice of journal. Question 1. Where did you learn about the topic? Looking through your key references should suggest a handful of journals that have already printed work in your area. It also implies that choosing one of those journals will likely put your work where your intended audience will find it. Question 2. Are there specialty publications that your audience is likely to scan regularly? You will tend to realize this more and more as you gravitate to a specific subspecialty, but there are often opinion-leading journals that people scan regularly and pick off journals of interest. For example, as a shoulder surgeon, the Journal of Shoulder and Elbow Surgery is a fairly important one that I may just skim the table of contents for on a regular basis. If your target audience consists of orthopedic surgeons in a subspecialty, journal choices may be easy to identify. If you're aiming for other disciplines, such as general practitioners or allied health providers, you may need to ask around about important journals in those fields. This increases the chance that your target audience will happen upon your paper. Question 3. How high is the quality of your study? This question is a bit sensitive, since we'd all like to think that we do quality work. However, having a realistic view of the strengths and limitations of our work is important. Because of the deluge of submissions, journals are starting to get selective. Level 4 case series will not do well in bigger journals unless they offer something exceptional. Minimum follow-up duration is also a submission criteria for some. Be aware of this before you spend time formatting and submitting. Question 4. How reputable and impactful is your target journal? Similar to wanting to believe that we all do high-quality work, most of us would like our work to be published in a prestigious journal. This both reflects well on the research and the research team, but also enhances the probability that our target audience will see it, read it, and respect it. However, not all work is fit for JBJS American. In fact, that's one example of a journal that charges money just to submit, whether it's successful or not. What you want to do is balance your research quality and the reputation of the journal so that it's an appropriate match. The goal is to aim as high as your work will allow so it reaches your audience, but not so high that you end up submitting to multiple journals until you find one to take your work. Your faculty mentor should help with this, because it takes some experience to get this right. Question 5. Does your intended journal accept the type of work you've done? Some journals don't accept case reports or narrative reviews. Others require minimum durations of follow-up. Some journals, though, will accept short reports or technical notes. Question 6. Where does your research mentor think it should go? This seems like a no-brainer, but it does deserve consideration. If your mentor's been publishing in the field for a while, they will likely have a sense of journals that they prefer to work with. They may be aware of nuances in the submission process that will help your efforts be successful more efficiently. On the other hand, it's possible to get stuck in a rhythm of submission and not pick the optimal journal for the target audience because it's not on your mentor's radar. Question 7. Do you have funding for your project? In recent times, the rise of many open access journals have increased the available options for researchers. Some care is required as not all have equally rigorous review processes, but they can represent a viable option. University of Calgary has some provision for students publishing in open access journals, but it's a good thing to keep in mind as you apply for funding for your project. There are two main goals you want to achieve when selecting a journal. First, you want your target audience to be able to find your paper easily. So use index journals most likely to reach your target audience. Second, you want to go through the submission process with as few iterations as possible. so pick the right journal the first time if you can. Multiple submission iterations can suck up a whole year before you know it. There are lots of potential factors in selecting a journal for publication. If you've selected your target journal early, you can prepare your manuscript to those specifications right away, rather than reformatting a generic manuscript. Following the guidelines is critical for an efficient submission process. While publication should not be the primary priority of science, it is often the only way most of us will disseminate our work, and it is an easy-to-track marker of academic activity. Being efficient will reduce the pain and suffering of the submissions process. In the next podcast, we'll touch on a basic list of things you'll need in order to push that final submission button with your journal of choice.